Yeah. Good morning, everyone. In the yesterday's session, we discussed about how to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. Okay. I think yesterday that was 30th session. We discussed about how to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean and what are the annotations available to represent the Java class as a Spring Bean. And we discussed about what is component scanning, how component scanning will work in the Spring Boot. Can anyone tell me what is the component scanning, guys? Component scanning is the process of identifying Spring Beans available in the project. The component scanning will start from the base package. What is a base package in the Spring Boot? The package which contains the start class is called as a base package. Once the base package scanning is completed, it will scan other packages which are available in the project. Sub packages it is going to scan. Then we discussed about what is @bean annotation. What is the purpose of @bean annotation? Component is a class level annotation. When you use a component, IOC container will create the object. But I don't want IOC to create the object. I want to create the object on my own programmatically. Then we can go for bean annotation. Then what is the purpose of this Spring Boot application annotation? What is @Spring Boot application annotation? That is the annotation at the class level. That is the annotation which is available at the class level. That is used at the start class of the Spring Boot. That one annotation is equal to 3 annotations here. What are those 3 annotations? One is @Spring Boot configuration, enable auto configuration. Third one is component scan. That one annotation is equal to 3 annotations, guys. Then I have given one assignment for you to understand what is bean scope in the Spring Boot and what is bean lifecycle in the Spring Boot. So can anyone tell me what is a bean scope? Bean scope is specific to methods. Akka. What is bean scope? I'm asking what is bean scope?
Sir, uh, sir, we have lots of bean other components. So when our bean has created, when our bean has died, and means born to die, everything in is bean life cycle, and I think bean
Okay.
is good. I'm not sure, but I think.
Yeah. So I told you to do some analysis on bean scopes and bean life cycle. Tell me, how many of you has done that analysis? You have not done. You have done. What is bean scope?
Sir, I got remember. I think, sir, we have lots of scope singleton, and then
Okay.
uh, uh, I think two or three more scopes. So I don't remember
Okay.
now.
Okay. Okay. Good. Fine, guys.
So bean scope means it defines the life cycle and visibility of the bean actually.
It is
Means
defines the life cycle and visibility of the bean. Okay. Any other answer?
Sir, sir, singleton scopes means we can create only one object, and then uh, if we take a multiple, so then we can create multiple objects.
Okay. Yeah. So fine. Guys, here, when we create the Spring application or Spring Boot application, IOC container will be available. That IOC container is creating object for our classes. We are representing our Java class as a Spring Bean. Then IOC container is going to create the object for the class. And who is starting that IOC container? Programmer is starting IOC container. Run method is starting the IOC container. Who is starting the IOC container? Run method is starting that IOC container. So when the IOC container started, it is doing the component scanning. It is creating the objects for the classes. And we can get the object from the IOC container. Now, I'm creating one new project. Okay, file, new Spring Starter project. I'm giving the project name as 03 Bean Scopes. Okay. Type of the project is a Maven. So today morning, all of you attended Maven class. So you understand what is Maven? What is Maven? Maven is a build tool which is used to automate project build process. What steps will be available in the build process? What is the meaning of build process? What is the meaning of build process? Downloading the dependencies, compiling the project, testing the project, packaging the project. All these things, instead of doing manually, we will automate them in the real time by using a tool called Maven. What is a Maven goal? Clean, compile, test, package, install. What is the purpose of these goals? To perform the build process. Whatever you want to do with the Maven, for that there is a goal in the Maven. So you need to practice the Maven tool. Notes is uploaded for the Spring Boot people also. Those tools are very, very important. Without those tools, you can't work on the project's development. Once Maven completed, then we will go for the GitHub. So all these tools are important for every Java developer. Okay, good. Now I'm going to create one new project, file new, Spring Starter project. The project name I'm giving as 03 Bean Scopes application. Click on next. Now dependencies, I'm not selecting anything. By default, boot starter will come next and finish. Okay. So third project is getting created. This project we created by using Spring Boot. Close the remaining projects. Now you go to pom.xml. Here dependency is available. By default, boot starter is coming. Test starter is also coming. Okay. Then next one, we can see that start class is available by default. This start class is entry point for application execution. Run method will start the IOC container, print the banner and all. This one annotation is equal to 3 annotations: boot configuration, enable auto configuration, and component scanning. Component scanning nothing but it will identify bean classes available in the project, and it will identify bean classes available in the project, and it is going to create the object for those bean classes. All right. Now, let me start this application, run as boot application, go to the console. As application started, okay, but currently there are no classes available to create the object. Let me create one class, new class. I'm following the package name. Base package is in.ashokit. The remaining package is a DAO. In.ashokit DAO. I'm creating one DAO with a name called user DAO. Now, this is a normal Java class. I want to represent this class as a Spring Bean. How can we do that? By using one annotation called @component annotation. Using one class called @component annotation. Using one annotation called @component, we can represent this class as a Spring Bean. Now, let us write one constructor to understand how many objects are getting created. User DAO. So let me keep this as user DAO constructor. User DAO constructor I'm using. So if the object is created, my constructor will be executed. Now go to the start class, run as boot application. Now can you see object is created or not? Yes, that class is a Spring Bean. That package is a base package of sub package for the base package. That package participated in the component scanning. So this is my base package. In.ashokit.davo is a sub package. It participated in the component scanning. This class is a Spring Bean. Object got created by IOC container. So what is IOC container? Come on, what is IOC container? Come on guys, what is IOC container? IOC is a principal which is responsible to manage our classes available in the application. Instead of we are creating the objects for the classes, IOC container will create the object for the classes. Instead of we are creating object for the classes, IOC container will create the object for the classes. So the class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. Any Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. Now, I want to get the bean object. IOC container creating the object. I want to get the object from the IOC container. Can you tell me the process? I have a user DAO. I'm representing that as a Spring Bean. IOC container creating the object. Now I want to get the object from the IOC container. How can I do that? First, I need to get the IOC object. Using IOC object, I can get the bean object. So tell me, how to get the IOC object? Come on. What is the return type of the run method? Configurable application context. What it will provide? IOC object. So the return type of the run method, configurable application context, that is giving the object of the IOC container. From this, I want to get my DAO object. What is the logic I need to do to get my DAO object? Come on, what is the logic I need to do? Context dot get bean. Context dot get bean. So what is the class name? User DAO dot class. User DAO dot class. What is the purpose of this method? Context dot get bean, which is used to get the bean object from the IOC container. So when I start my application, IOC container will be started. So when the IOC container started, it is loading my classes. It is creating the object for the classes. Run method is returning the object of the IOC. By using that IOC object, I want to get my object. Context.getBean of DAO, I got the DAO object. Now, let me print the hash code of the DAO. System.out.println DAO1.hashcode. DAO1.hashcode. Hash code will be printed. Right click, run as boot application. Now you see, object we are able to get and we are printing the hash code of the object. Now, can I get the one more object from the IOC for the same class? Can I get the one more object from the IOC for the same class? Yes, I'm going to use context dot get bean of same class, user DAO dot class. User DAO dot class. What is the return type? DAO. DAO2. System.out.println DAO2 dot a hash code. So how many objects I'm getting now? I'm getting the two objects. I'm printing the hash code of those objects. Right click, run as boot application. Can you see hash code is different or a hash code is the same for the two objects? Hash code is different or hash code is same?
Same.
Hash code is same. If the hash code is same, can I say there are two objects or there is only one object?
Only one object.
There is only one object. That means even if you call getBean method 2 times, it is giving the same object. That's where bean scopes concept comes into picture. So IOC container is managing our classes. IOC container performing component scanning. IOC container creating the objects for the beans. We are representing our Java class as a Spring Bean by using component annotation. IOC is responsible to load the classes. IOC is responsible to create the object. IOC is responsible for dependency injection. But the question is, how many objects will be created for one Spring Bean? Okay, how many objects will be created for one Spring Bean? So here, how many objects will be created for a Spring Bean depends on the bean scopes concept. Bean scope will decide how many objects should be created for our Spring Bean class. So I am calling getBean method for 2 times. I'm calling getBean method for 2 times. GetBean of user DAO, getBean of user DAO. DAO1, DAO2. 2 objects are available. So when I have 2 objects, when I print the hash code, if a hash code is different, then I can say 2 objects are created. If the hash code is same, we need to say that only one object is created. Now let's understand what is bean scopes concept in the Spring Boot. bean scopes concept. Bean scopes, bean scope will decide how many objects should be created for a spring bean. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a spring bean. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a spring bean. We have below scopes. We have below bean scopes in the spring. We have below scopes. First scope is called singleton scope. That is called default. If you don't specify any bean scope, then by default it will consider that as a singleton scope. And the second one, prototype scope is available. Third one, request scope available. Fourth one, session scope is available. So total we have 4 bean scopes in the Spring Boot. First one is singleton. Second one is prototype. Third one is request. Fourth one is session. Here, if you don't specify any scope for the bean, if you are not specifying any bean scope, then it will consider by default as singleton. Singleton means only one object will be created. If you call getBean method for 100 times also, for your class, only one object will be created. Whenever you call getBean method, now, if I call getBean method once again also, DAO3 I am using, DAO1, DAO2, DAO3. DAO1 hash code, DAO2 hash code, DAO3 hash code. You run your project, run as boot application. See, all the 3 objects are having the same hash code. So there are 3 different objects available or only one object available. IOC container creating only one object for the class. Whenever you call the getBean method, IOC container returning the same object for you. You call getBean method 10 times also, you will get the same object because your user DAO is a spring bean because it is having a component. This spring bean is singleton bean. Singleton means only one object will be created. Are you clear with my point? So spring beans concept is available. Bean scopes concept available. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a spring bean. So we have below 4 scopes. One is singleton, another one is prototype, now third one request, fourth one session. Now if we don't specify any scope, then by default it will consider as singleton scope. If you don't specify any scope, by default it will consider as singleton scope. For singleton scoped beans, if the bean is a singleton scope, for singleton scoped beans, only one object will be created. Only one object will be created. If you call the getBean method, it will return the same object. And one more point, singleton beans are eager loading beans. Singleton beans are eager loading beans. What is the meaning of eager loading? If you don't call the getBean also, your object will be created. If you just start the IOC container, it will do the component scanning. In the component scanning, it will identify what all the spring beans available, how many singleton beans are available. Singleton means only one object. If I create now, I will keep it ready. When programmer asks that bean, I can return the existing object only. No need to create the object every time. Object creation only one time. Whenever IOC is starting, IOC will create the object for the singleton, will keep them ready. When you ask getBean, it will give the existing object. You call getBean for 2 times or 3 times or 100 times. It will give the same object. That singleton bean object will be created when the IOC container is started. Okay. Now go here, run as boot application. I'm not calling getBean method. Run as boot application. Now check it. Object is created or not created. constructor is executed. What is the meaning of that? Object is created. Object is creating when I call the getBean method, or object is creating when the IOC started? Am I calling the getBean method? No, I'm not calling the getBean method, but still object is created. What is the meaning of that? Eager loading. What is the meaning of that? Eager loading. So lazy loading, eager loading. Singleton bins are following under eager loading. When the IOC container started, the object will be created. Are you able to follow this? Now, let me go and create one more Java object class here. New class. I'm going with the service. Okay. I'm taking this class with a name called user service. This is normal Java class. User service is a normal Java class. So let me keep this as user service constructor. Object will be created or will not be created? For this class, object will be created or will not be created? Will not be created. Why? Because it is not a Spring Bean. Now check it. Application. I'm starting IOC container. I'm running the start class. Only DAO object is created. DAO is a Spring Bean. Service is not a Spring Bean. How to represent that as a Spring Bean? By using @component. Now, object will be created or will not be created? Will be created. What is the scope of those beans? What is the scope of those beans? Singleton. Singleton beans objects will be created when the IOC container started. When you call getBean method, what will happen? Will it create a new object or will return the existing object? Come on. It will return the existing object. Okay. So bean scopes concept. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a Spring Bean. How many types of scopes available? 4 scopes available. What are those 4 scopes? Singleton, prototype, request, session. If we don't specify any scope, then by default it will consider as singleton scope. For singleton scoped beans, only one object will be created. Singleton beans are eager loading beans. That means when IOC container started, then immediately objects will be created. Immediately objects will be created for singleton beans. For singleton beans. Okay. When you call getBean method, it will return the existing object. It will not create the new object. Let me make a point. Note. When we call getBean method, IOC will return existing object. GetBean method, IOC will return existing object of singleton bean. So that's why when you call getBean method 2 times or 3 times also, you are getting the same object because the bean scope is singleton. Are you clear with my point? Yeah. Now next one, let me change the scope. I don't want the singleton. I want to create multiple objects. When you want to create multiple objects, you need to set the scope as prototype. Singleton means only one object. Prototype means multiple objects will be created. Now, to specify the scope, we will use one annotation called @scope annotation. @scope, I'm going to specify the scope as prototype. What is the scope I am using? Prototype. Let us see what all the scopes available here. Application scope, global session, prototype, request, session, singleton, WebSocket. This application and global scope, request application, global session, WebSocket, these scopes are removed in the latest versions of the Spring Boot. Okay, in the Spring framework, this global session, application, WebSocket not supported. Only 4 scopes are supported. Singleton scope, prototype scope, request scope, and session scope only will be supported. Let me go with the scope as prototype. If the scope is a prototype, what is the meaning of that? Singleton means only one object. Prototype means multiple objects. Whenever you call getBean method, then the object will be created. Prototype scope nothing but on demand basis. When you need, then only object will be created. So prototype beans are lazy loading beans. Prototype beans are lazy loading. Lazy loading means when the IOC is started, object will not be created. If you call getBean method, then only object will be created. Now see, there are two beans available. One is user DAO. What is the scope of user DAO? There is no scope. That means
Singleton.
it is a default. What is the default scope? Singleton. Go for user service. What is the scope available? Prototype. Now go to the application. I'm starting my IOC container. So when you call the run method, IOC container will be started. Let's execute. Run as boot application. Now, can you see which object is created? User DAO object created. Why user service not created? Why user service bin is not created?
Lazy
It
loading.
is a prototype. Lazy loading. Eager loading. Lazy loading. Singleton beans are eager loading. Prototype beans are lazy loading. So now, if you call getBean method, then only prototype bean object will be created. How to get the bean object now? Come on. Context dot getBean. Context dot getBean. User service dot class. Now return type. Store that into user service object. System dot out dot println user service object dot hash code. I'm calling the getBean method. Now when I call the getBean method, then only object will be created. Run as boot application. Now you see, first user DAO created as part of eager loading. After that, when I call getBean method, then only user service object is creating. Now I will call getBean method once again for the user service. User service 2, user service 2 dot hash code. How many times I am calling the getBean method for the user service? 2 times. Run as boot application. So now can you see how many times the constructor is executed? That means one object is created or two objects are created? Two objects are created because the scope is prototype. So now tell me, what is bean scope? Come on, what is bean scope? Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for the bean and when the object should be created for the bean. So what are the scopes available? 4 scopes available. Request, session, singleton, prototype. What is the default scope? Singleton. What is the meaning of singleton? Only one object and it is eager loading. What is the meaning of eager loading? When the IOC container started, then immediately bean object will be created. If you call getBean method, will it create a new object or it will return the existing object? It will return the existing object. Okay, fine. What about prototype? Prototype nothing but eager loading or lazy loading? Lazy loading. What is the meaning of lazy loading? Whenever IOC started, object will not be created. When you call the getBean method, then only object will be created. If I call getBean method for 5 times, 5 different objects will be created. If I call 10 times, 10 different objects will be created. And request and session scopes available, these are related to WebMVC module. Controller, REST controller topics are there. Those are related to WebMVC. Request and session available. Those are also related to WebMVC module. Okay. When we go for WebMVC, then we will talk about request and session. All right. Now, so here prototype beans are prototype scope. Prototype beans are lazy loading beans. Lazy loading beans. That means when we call getBean method, when we call getBean method, then only object will be created. And for every getBean method call, every time Prototype means every time new object will be created. Prototype beans are lazy loading beans. That means when we call get bean method, then only new object will be created. Prototype beans will have multiple objects will be created. Multiple objects will be created for prototype beans. Multiple objects will be created for the prototype beans. And remember, in the project's development, in the real time, 99.99% of classes are singleton classes only. We don't take the prototype classes in the project, because if you take the prototype classes, unnecessarily so many objects will be created, memory will be wasted. So that's why by default every bean is a singleton bean. So in the project, if you have 1000 classes, 995 classes to 998 classes will be singleton classes only. Only 1 or 2 classes will be prototype, and that is also very rare scenario. Going with the prototype classes is very rare scenario. What is the problem with the prototype? Every time new object will be created. So if 1 lakh people access my application, 1 lakh objects will be created. If 1 lakh objects are created, what is the problem? Memory. JVM memory will be completed. Now let us see. We are going to develop our projects by using layered architecture, guys. We will develop our projects by using layered architecture. So nothing but controller will be available, service will be available, DAO will be available, and database will be available. So this is the architecture we will follow. This is my database. To communicate with the database, DAO class will be available, and service will be there with the business logic. Controller will be available with the web logic. Okay. Now here user interface will be available. This is the UI. From the UI, people will send a request to the controller. Controller will talk to service. Service will talk to DAO. DAO will talk to database. So in the real time, every project will be developed by using layered architecture, which is also called as MVC architecture. Some people will call 3-tier architecture. Some people will call N-tier architecture. Okay, multiple layers will be available in our project. Controller layer will be available, service layer will be available, DAO layer will be available. Multiple DAOs will be available, multiple services will be available, multiple controllers also will be available. Multiple DAOs, multiple services, multiple controllers will be available. Now, assume that I am representing my controller as a prototype. I'm representing my controller as a prototype bean. So scope I am giving as a prototype for my controller. Now, from the UI application, one person sent a request to the controller. One object will be created. Second user send the request. Second object will be created. 10 users are sending the request. 10 objects are created. 1 lakh people accessing my application. Now, imagine how many people will access Gmail at a time? Crores. So do you think that in the Gmail, inbox controller will be prototype controller? If we make Gmail inbox controller as a prototype controller, 1 crore people will access a Gmail inbox at a time. Then 1 lakh objects will be created in the JVM. Then our JVM will die because memory will not be available. So if you make your class as a prototype, every time new object will be created. If every time if the new object is creating, memory will be wasted. Your project will run into out of memory problem. Okay. Do you know what is meta space in the JVM? What is the permission space in the JVM? Do you know JVM architecture? What is JVM architecture? Where the JVM will allocate the memory?
Heap.
Heap is used to store the objects. Okay. If the heap memory is completed, If the heap memory is completed, then what will happen? Where the JVM will have the class loader, right? What is a class loader? Where it will load the classes, where it will store our classes. Yes, whenever you start the Java program, Java class will be loaded to JVM by using class loader. Where it will store your classes in the JVM.
Again, heap only. It will create a class
Runtime
object.
areas where
It will
Heap, no.
it will create a class object and store that into the heap, and again it will point in the method area.
No. In the JVM, there is a memory called metaspace, which is used to store the classes which are loaded by the class loader subsystem. Classes will be loaded into metaspace, objects will be created into heap area. Okay, and your local variables will be stored into stack area. Whenever your method is executing, it will go to stack. Initially when the class loader is loading your classes, those classes will go to metaspace. When the object is created, objects will go to heap area. During the method execution, temporary variables, local variables will be available. Those variables will be stored into stack area. Okay. Before metaspace, there was another memory called permgen space is available. Permgen space is available in the JVM. But from Java 1.8 version, they removed the permgen space and they have introduced metaspace concept. There is a lot of story. What is permgen space? What is metaspace? What is heap area? What is stack area? What is young generation? What is old generation in the JVM? What is hidden space in the JVM? Young generation memory will be available. Old generation memory will be available. Okay. And garbage collector will be available. Garbage collector will follow mark and sweep algorithm. Swallowing concept will be available. Okay. Stop the world event will be available. So JVM architecture is very big. I can talk about JVM architecture for 4 hours. So that much depth is there in the JVM. Do you know how garbage collection will work? How? How it will crash the object? How it will remove the object? What is the algorithm it will follow?
Mark and sweep algorithm.
If you call finalize method, is it guaranteed that JVM will, garbage collector will remove the object?
No.
No. So we'll discuss about garbage collection concept, guys. That's very, very, very important to understand. If you want to develop large scale applications, memory management is very important, because if you don't utilize the JVM memory properly, your project will run into out of memory problems. So as a developer, we need to be very careful about that. If out of memory problem comes, our project is gone. You can't do anything. So you need to make sure your project is not going into out of memory problems. Right. Now, so by mistake, if you make your controller as a prototype, what is the problem? For every request, new object will be created for the controller. If 1 crore people access your controller at a time, 1 crore objects will be created, JVM will die, you will get the out of memory problem. So is it recommended to use the prototype bin? Not recommended. We need to go with the singleton. So that's why in the real-time projects development, all the controller bins, all the service bins, all the DAO bins will be available as singleton only. That means only one object will be created. That also will be created when the IOC container is started. Singleton bins are eager loading bins. When the IOC is started, object will be created for the singleton bin. Able to follow me? So what is a prototype? Prototype nothing but every time I want to create the new object. Every time I want to create the new object. And prototype bins are lazy loading or eager loading? Lazy loading. What is the meaning of lazy loading? Whenever you call the getBin method, then only prototype object will be created. Now, in the real-time projects, most of the classes comes under which scope? Singleton. Why? To save the memory. Now let us see a scenario. In which scenario we need to go for singleton. All the controller classes, all the service classes, all the DAO classes, we will make as a singleton, because user requests are coming. Our application is a web application. Multiple people will access our application at a time. For multiple people, we should not create multiple objects. Only one object which will process multiple requests. So if 1 lakh people accessing our application also, for controller only one object will be created, because our controller is a singleton controller. By default, every class is a singleton in the Spring. If you don't use any scope, the default scope is a singleton scope only. Now let us take a scenario. If you go to any bank, or if you go to any customer service centers, like our Dell customer center or Airtel customer center, Jio customer care centers are available. When you go for any customer care center, or if you go to the bank, SBI bank and all, there will be one device will be available. That a device is a token generation device. Okay. Multiple customers are coming to the customer care center. So they are giving the tokens for the people. Hello, sir. You already came half an hour late. Again, you are using mobile. Every day you are coming late to the class. Tomorrow onwards, I will check it. Right? Now, so if you go to any bank, or if you go to any customer service center, you can see one token generation device will be available. Token generation device will be available. Multiple people will go to this device and they will generate a token, serial number. Token number 1, token number 2, token number 3. Multiple tokens will be generated. For every customer, new token should be generated. So here, 2 classes will be available. One is, there is a class called token generator class is available, and another one is token class will be available. So here, token generator and token. One token generator class object is used to create multiple tokens. For every customer, new token should be created. Token will have a serial number. So for first customer, number 1. Second customer, number 2, number 3. The token is different for every customer. So this token you can take as a prototype, because for every customer, new token should be created. For every customer, new token, new data will be available. But what about the token generator? For every customer, new object for token generator. Using one token generator, we can create multiple tokens. One token generator we can use to generate the multiple tokens. So here, token generator class we will use as a singleton. Token we will use as a prototype. Okay. So in which scenario we need to go for singleton, in which scenario we need to go for prototype. So when you want to generate a new object for every customer, then you can go for the prototype bean. But for all the customers, when you want some common functionality, then you can go for singleton. By default, all the Spring Beans are singleton. 99.9% of classes in the projects are singleton only. Only one object will be created, and that too they are eager loading. When the IOC container started, object will be created. If you want a new object every time, then you need to specify bean scope like this. If you specify bean scope like this, then only prototype object will be created. Are you able to follow this? Now, so to represent scope of a bean, you are going to use @scope annotation. If I don't write the scope annotation, then what will happen? Comes under singleton. I hope you got the clarity. What is bean scopes concept here? What is the bean scopes concept? Come on. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a Spring Bean. Bean scope will represent how many objects should be created for a Spring Bean. How many bean scopes available? 4 bean scopes available. What are those 4 bean scopes? One is singleton, another one is prototype, third one is request, fourth one is session. If we don't specify any scope, then by default we will consider as singleton scope only. Now, for singleton scoped beans only, one object will be created, and those beans are eager loading. What is the meaning of eager loading? When the IOC container started, then immediately objects will be created for the singleton beans. When we call getBean method, IOC will return existing object of the singleton bean. What about prototype? Prototype beans are lazy loading beans. That means when we call getBean method, then only new object will be created. Multiple objects will be created for the prototype beans. All right. How to specify the scope? At the rate scope, either singleton or prototype. Now, next one. What about the request and session? What about the request and session? Request and session scopes are related to Spring Web MVC module. That is our future topic. When we are going to develop web application, at that time we are going to use Web MVC module. With the Web MVC module, we are going to understand what is this request and session scopes. What is request and session scopes we are going to understand with our Web MVC module. Are you able to follow me? Yes, perfect. So I hope you understood what is the Spring Bean and what is eager loading, what is lazy loading, how to represent the Java class as a Spring Bean. Now, so let me tell you what are the concepts that we discussed so far. So as of now, we understood what is Spring Boot. Can you tell me what is the Spring Boot? Spring Boot is an extension for the Spring Framework. Spring Boot is extension for the Spring Framework. Spring Boot is one approach to develop Spring application with minimal or less configurations. Spring Boot is an approach to develop Spring applications with minimal or less configurations. And we have seen advantages with the Spring Boot. What are the advantages with the Spring Boot? Form starters. Form starters. They are simplifying our dependencies in the form.xml. You no need to add so many dependencies. Simply you add one starter. It will provide everything which is required for your application. Form starters is one advantage. And the second advantage, auto configuration. Based on the form starter, Boot is identifying configuration required for the project. It is providing that configuration. Practically, we have seen when I add web starter, Tomcat server is coming. When I add WebFlex starter, NetEase server is coming. When I add security, login page is coming. So when you add JPA, database connection pool will be created. Auto configuration is one of the most important advantage in the Spring Boot. Then third advantage, embedded servers. What is the meaning of embedded server? What is the meaning of embedded server, guys? Okay, whenever you run a web application, then it will provide the server for your application automatically. Embedded servers. How many embedded servers supported? 3. What are those 3? Tomcat, Jetty, Netty. When you go for web starter, Tomcat is coming as a default container. When you go for WebFlex, Netty is coming. Okay, what is the another advantage? Actuators available. What is the purpose of actuators? Actuators are used to monitor and manage our application. Production ready features. What is the health of the application? How many classes loaded? How many objects created? How many threads available? What are the URLs available? What are the classes loaded? Everything you can get by using actuator. Another advantage, component scanning. What is the meaning of that component scanning? It will scan the packages and it will identify Spring Bean classes and it will load those classes. Then after this, we discussed about Spring Boot project creation, Spring Boot application development. How many ways we can create the Spring Boot application? 2 ways. One is by using IDE, another one is by using initializer website. When you go for IDE like STS, directly you can create the project. Internally, it will communicate with the initializer website only. And we discussed about Spring Boot application folder structure. Spring Boot application project folder structure. What are the folders available? What are the files available? Main Java, main resources, test Java, Maven dependencies, target will be available. Okay. Now, Main Java, where we will write the source code. Main resources, where we will write the configuration files. And the test Java, unit test code, form.xml, dependencies we will write. What is the target folder? Binary code. Whenever you compile the project, binary code, bytecode will be generated, dot class files. Those dot class files will be created in the target. What is the Maven goal to compile a project? How to compile a project by using Maven? MVN compile. How to delete the target directory? MVN clean. How to package my project?
MVN package.
package. Clean. What is the meaning of clean package?
MVN clean.
Delete the target, compile, test, and package the. So along with this subject, tools also important. Okay. So we are giving the tools for free for the Spring Boot people. So if you don't attend the tools classes, then it is your bad luck. I cannot do anything. So without having the knowledge on those tools, you cannot develop a project. So today morning you attended one class. So like this, next 1 week to 10 days, tools will be available for you. So as you are getting that for free of cost, don't ignore. If you ignore, you will be the loser. If you don't attend those classes, you will be the loser. You will not understand the project's development. It's very, very important. Along with Spring Boot microservices, tools knowledge is also required for you. Don't miss those classes. Don't say that morning 7 o'clock, I can't wake up. So if you tell that kind of silly reason, your life will be affected. I will not lose anything. Okay, good. Remember that point. Yep. Spring Boot project folder structure also we understood. Then we discussed about start class in the Spring Boot. We discussed about start class in the Spring Boot. What is a start class in the Spring Boot? Come on. What is a start class in the Spring Boot? Start class is entry point for the boot application execution. Start class is entry point for the boot application execution. So without start class, you can't run our boot application. Inside that start class, we discussed what is Spring application dot run method. Spring application dot run method. Or else we can say internals of run method. Internals of Spring application dot run method. What is happening in the run method? So many things are available in the run method. It will start the IOC container. It will print the banner. It will call the runners, and it will return the object of the IOC container. And we discussed about what is @Spring Boot application annotation. Guys, all these things are just to basics. Project development is not started. Are we developing any application? Are we developing any project? No. What we are doing from last 10 days? Basics. If you want to develop a project, you should know these basics. We are understanding fundamentals. These all are fundamentals, core concepts of the Spring. People will say, sir, are you going to explain Spring core module? When the people are joining for the Spring Boot, they will ask, sir, we don't know about the Spring core. Will you teach Spring core or not? What we are learning now, Spring core only. The fundamental concepts are called as core module concepts. What is the Spring Bean? What is IOC container? What is the dependency injection? What is bean scope? What is bean lifecycle? How to get the bean object? Okay. How to start the IOC container? All these are core concepts of the Spring framework. We are learning along with the Spring Boot. Okay. That means you are learning Spring core also. Not only Spring Boot. You are learning Spring core concepts. With these core concepts, you can develop the project by using Spring Boot. So it will take another 1 week of time to enter into project development, because these basics are very, very, very important. Without knowing these basics, you cannot develop a project. Project development not started. Just we are learning fundamentals of the Spring framework and Spring Boot concepts. Are you clear? And in the interview, they will ask the questions from these fundamentals only. What is IOC container? What is the dependency injection? What is the bean scope? When to go for singleton? When to go for a prototype? Can you tell me what is the component scanning? Can you tell me what is the run method in the Spring Boot? Minimum to minimum, 20+ questions can come from these basic concepts only. If you want to attend the interview as a fresher also, these questions are very common. Without these questions, your interview will not be completed. First focus, Java 8. They will ask questions on the Java 8. Then second one, Spring Boot only. Nobody will ask a question on the JDBC Servlet JSP. Outdated. So they will ask questions directly on the Java 8, multi-threading, exception handling, Boot's concepts, then directly Spring Boot internals, Spring core concepts, Spring Boot, then REST API, then microservices. Then real-time tools also they will check. Do you know how to work with the GitHub? Do you know how to work with the Docker? Do you know how to work with the Jenkins? These questions also they are going to ask you. So you need to practice all these things. Subject, you need to learn fundamentals, projects implementation, and the next one, tools, you need to learn. So then only you can crack the interview. Are you clear? Now, I have done some research on the students in the Amirpet, guys. I have identified some common mistakes that everybody is doing in the Amirpet. The first mistake is people are not focusing on projects implementation. That is the first problem. People are focusing on theory. They are focusing on theoretical part. If I ask what is lambda expression, everybody will tell the definition. If I ask what is stream API, everybody will tell the definition. But if I give you a task, write a Java program to identify second highest salary department wise by using stream API, people are not able to write. They know what is stream API, but when I ask some question, they are not able to write the logic for that. So that means they are not focusing on the practicals, not focusing on practical implementations. They are focusing only on the theoretical part. If I ask any question, what is multi-threading? They will tell me the answer, but they don't know how to implement multi-threading in the project. So they are not focusing on the practicals. First, they are focusing only on the theory. And second one, not implementing projects. Not implementing real world projects. Not implementing real world projects, nothing but real time projects. In the course, everybody will implement employee management CAD operations. In every course, they will implement CAD operations. Insert the book, retrieve the book, update the book, delete the book. Insert employee, delete employee, update, retrieve. CAD operations they will do. Second example, they will do login and registration. That's it. Your course will be completed at that level only. You are implementing maximum CAD operations and you are implementing login and registration functionalities only. Apart from that, they are not able to develop one complete project. They are not thinking the real-time requirements. They are not developing the complete project. That is the another problem I have observed from the students. And the third problem that I have seen, communication. Communication skills problem. People are not able to participate in the group discussion. They are not able to explain about themselves. They are not able to speak 5 minutes in English. So if I ask you to give some seminar for half an hour, people are not able to do that. Non-stop seminar for 30 minutes, people are not able to give. Any topic is your choice. You have to speak in front of the people on the dais confidently. So that skill is not there for the people. The communication skills problem and presentation skills problem. If I am explaining so many topics on the Spring Boot from last 10 days. If I ask you to explain the concept on the dais for 5 minutes, people are not able to explain. The presentation skills are weak for the people. Communication skills are weak for the people. Communication skills and presentation skills are weak. And the another problem, fourth problem I have identified. Students are completely depending on trainer and institute. For subject, they are completely depending on the trainer. For the placement, they are completely depending on the institute. Institute has to bring the drives. then only they will go for the interview. Faculty has to explain everything, then only they will learn. These are the four things I have analyzed on the Amirpet students. They are completely depending on the trainer for the subject. They are not doing self-learnings. They are not trying to do some research. So whatever faculty will explain, same thing they are practicing. That is biggest problem. And second one, people are not applying for the jobs in the LinkedIn. So you should not wait for the placement from the institute. You need to apply your profile in the Naukri. You need to prepare your own resume. You need to prepare your LinkedIn profile. You need to check the job updates in the Naukri. You need to go to the company website. You need to check the careers in the company website. You need to apply for the jobs on your own. And you need to attend the interviews. Some people are not doing that. They are waiting for placement from the institute. So this is the another mistake that people are doing in the institute. Students are completely depending on the trainer for subject. Completely they are depending on the institute for the placement. Will you agree? These are the mistakes you are doing. How many of you doing all four mistakes? Not focusing on the practicals. Only theoretical practice. Theoretical you are learning. Definition wise you are good. But implementation wise you are weak. Not implementing real world projects. So you should be able to develop your own application. So you take one requirement, like how Facebook is available, you should try to implement that. How e-commerce is there, you need to implement. Take one insurance application, develop that. Take one banking application, develop that. Take one blog application, develop that. So you should not wait for the faculty. You need to create your own requirement and you need to start developing that requirement on your own. So take one requirement, online exam conduction, how to take an exam in the online for a student, develop one project on that, how to do the bank operations, bank transaction, deposit, withdraw, real money not required, fake money you can transfer, you can deduct, you can withdraw, you can create one insurance application, you can create one blog application, you can create one e-commerce application. You need to try those things, but people are not doing that. That is second problem. Communication skills. People are not speaking English. They're not improving that skill. Not able to participate in the group discussion. Not interacting with the people in the English. Presentation skills are weak. So if you are not able to give a demo on particular topic, subject-wise demo also, some people are not able to provide on the dais. Stage fear. Stage fear is there. If you see multiple people in front of you, you are not able to speak. And completely depending on the trainer for the subject, completely depending on the institute for the placement. These are the four mistakes people are doing when they are attending the courses. If you can focus on these things, then you can improve. You can get the job. Will you agree? So these are the four problems. So come back to Spring Boot. We discussed about what is the Spring Boot. We discussed about advantages with the Spring Boot. We discussed how to create one Spring Boot application. We have seen folder structure of the Spring Boot application. And we have seen what is the start class in the Spring Boot. And we have seen internals of the run method. And we have seen what is boot application annotation. Okay. And we discussed about component scanning. We discussed about what is component scanning. In the component scanning, we have seen base package and sub packages. Your sub packages should follow the naming convention of the base package, then only component scanning will happen. And we discussed about how to represent Java, how to represent Java class as Spring Bean. We discussed about how to represent our Java class as Spring Bean. How to represent Java class as a Spring Bean? Yeah, as of now, we used one annotation called @component, and we have seen @configuration, and we have seen @bean. What is the purpose of component? Class level annotation. Java class will be represented as a Spring Bean. IOC container will create the object. I don't want IOC to create the object. I want to create my own object. Then @bean, bean is a method level. What is configuration? What is configuration? I want to represent my Java class as a configuration class. Inside the configuration class, we'll keep the bean methods. All right. Then today we discussed about bean scopes. We discussed about bean scopes. What are the bean scopes available? We have singleton, we have prototype. Singleton, prototype is available, request is available, session is available. What is the meaning of singleton? Only one object will be created, that is default scope. Eager loading. Singleton beans are eager loading. When the IOC started, then only objects will be created for the singleton. What is prototype? What is the meaning of prototype? Lazy loading. Whenever you call the getBean method, then only object will be created for the prototype. Request and session is related to WebMVC module. So these are the topics that we have learned so far in our Spring Boot. Revision, I can say summary. Summary or revision. Look at this. What is the Spring Boot? What are the advantages with the Spring Boot? Spring Boot application development, project folder structure, start class in the Spring Boot, internals of run method, what is boot application, what is component scanning, how to represent Java class as a Spring Bean, and what are the bean scopes available. Clear? Now, so before coming to tomorrow's session, I want you people to do the analysis on auto wiring. One topic I'm giving as an assignment, very important topic, that is called auto wiring. That is related to dependency injection. So before coming to tomorrow's session, I want you people to go through what is auto wiring. I will ask questions. There are so many questions in the auto wiring. What is auto wiring? What is by name? What is by type? Setter injection at the auto wiring, constructor injection with auto wiring, field injection with auto wiring. So you need to go through all those topics. As I told you, you need to improve the self-learning. So I told you one of the common mistake from the students, self-learning is not there. They're completely depending on the trainer. If you depend on the trainer will be there with you for 3 months of time. After 3 months, bye-bye, tata. Then you have to survive. You will go to the company. No, in the company, trainers will not be available. In the company, employees will be available. What is the difference between employee and a trainer? Trainer will explain you. Employee will not explain you. Everybody will have their own task. Everybody will be busy. So they will not help you. They will not teach you anything. So only trainer will teach you. But trainer will not be there with you lifelong. Trainer means only 6 months or only 3 months will be there. After that, you have to lead your life. Okay? You have to lead your life. So you need to do the things on your own. You should learn the things on your own because nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. So we have to learn based on our requirement, based on our job demand. What is our project is demanding? You need to update. You need to learn. For that, self-learning. Research is more important, guys. Research is more important. So that skill you need to improve. So that's why what I'm going to explain tomorrow, I'm giving that as an assignment for you so that you will do some research on that. Don't come to the class with a blank mind. That is my expectation. Don't come to the class with the blank mind. If you come to the class with a blank mind, you will not understand anything. So you should have at least 10% of knowledge on the topic before coming to the class. Then you will get the remaining 90% clarity in the class. Then you can learn the subject. So here 2 things. Easily you can understand the topic. That is the first advantage. Second advantage, slowly you are improving your self-learning skills. Okay. So if you do this process, if you follow this process for 3 months, after 3 months, when it comes to the 4th month, when there is a new topic, will you wait for me? No. You will research. You can learn. So I want to make you a self-learner. Got my point? Good. You can use it. ChatGPT, Google, Stack Overflow, YouTube, you can use. Without internet, developers cannot work because everybody will Google, will copy the code, will modify according to the requirement. That's it. Even if you think that All the Java concepts are not there in my brain. I can't butify the code. Tomorrow, if they give some requirement, I will go to Google. I will search in the Google. Searching technique I know. I can find the solution. I will copy that. I will modify according to my project requirement. In the Google, everything is available, but it will not match with your requirement. You take it, you modify according to your requirement. That skill you should have. Searching skill you need to improve. Singleton as a lazy loading, no. ఒకసారి లోడ్ అవుతాయి కదా, కంపల్సరీ లోడ్ అవ్వాలి, ఇంకా తప్పదు కదా అది. దట్ సింగిల్టన్ మీన్స్ డెఫినెట్లీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ హ్యాస్ టు బి క్రియేటెడ్, whether it is creating now or it is creating after some time, only one object only. So in the project, if you are creating class, definitely that class should be loaded. So it's not like a memory. If you create a same object, same class object, if you are creating multiple times, you are wasting the memory. But singleton class, if you create, definitely it has to be loaded. Memory should be allocated. Without memory, you can't use that object, right? You can't use it. Memory wastage comes into picture when you are creating multiple objects for the same class. Unnecessarily, you are creating duplicate objects. Then memory wastage. For one class, one object, it's required. Without object, how can you use that class? You cannot use it. You will call definitely at any point of time, you will call. So you will call that. Multiple people are calling the same thing means multiple objects will be created. It's better to create only one object instead of creating multiple objects. We'll discuss that. Once auto wiring completed, I have given time, you do some research, I will explain that. No, the token machines are independent, right? If you go to one bank and SBI different bank, well, you have different devices. Software is not common for all of them, right? It is specific to particular device only. The ticket generation, one object only. Ticket data, they will print as a PDF, right? They don't create the new object for every ticket. Only the data will be modifying there. No. But generally, sir, in my from 7 years, I'm working on the Spring Boot. I never used a single prototype bean in my project. So we don't have that kind of scenarios. Just for topic wise, syllabus wise, we are learning what is prototype. In the real time, we have not used it as of now. Good, fine. So tomorrow we are going to talk about auto wiring. So please do some work on the auto wiring and practice Maven also. Two things you have to practice, tools as well as Spring Boot. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Sir,
online students.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I
is
have something to
lazy
ask.
loading and
One
eager
minute,
loading?
one minute,
Can you
one
please
minute. Let me
answer?
stop the recording.